Yeah, Sunday night, recapping week 4. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Big-time scorers today. It was a high-scoring day, and DeAndre Swift comes out of nowhere to be our number 1 running back at the moment. Jordan Love in a comeback effort that fell just short, 35 fantasy points. He's your QB1. Who's tight end 1, guys? Who's tight end 1?
Taysom Hill.
Almost. Tucker Kraft. Kraft.
Yeah. The guy I dropped in 2 of my deep leagues. Awesome.
Who's wide receiver 1? Almost scored as many points as the top quarterback. Nico Collins. This guy is insane. Holy moly, he's a league winner. And injuries, Rashee Rice with a probably serious knee injury. That's the big one here. I guess it wasn't too bad of an injury day, but that was kind of a bummer. All right, let's do a big winner and a big loser. Dave, who's a big winner today?
You already gave away one of my big winners. It's DeAndre Swift, although maybe now he'll be just back to being the headache that he was for fantasy managers. Through the first 3 weeks of the season, he was not started unanimously across the board. There were people who dropped DeAndre Swift going into this week, and I wasn't ready to do that, but I wasn't ready to trust him. But this matchup against the Rams, he looked phenomenal. There was also clearly intent by the Bears to get him involved in the passing game, although his best catch was kind of an improvisational play, sort of like what we saw from the preseason. But overall, played 67% of the snaps and got some great blocking from the Bears, especially in the second half. That big run play was awesome. And no Khalil Herbert in short yardage, although that benefited Roschon as well. Anyway, you're going to like Swift next week against Carolina. He's a winner.
Are we really? Are we going to that's the thing. We're going to just kind of erase all the bad feelings from the first 3 weeks.
Not only are you going to like him against Carolina, you're going to like him again the week after against Jacksonville. The one thing Chicago can at least take away from this game is let's try and get these running backs going to make things easier for Caleb Williams.
Yeah, anything you can do to make things easier for Caleb Williams. Okay, Heath, who's a big loser in week 4?
Carson Steele, 2 carries, 6 yards, 3 targets, 0 yards, and he fumbled, and he looked like a fullback. And then Kareem Hunt came in and looked like a running back, and then Samaje Perine came in short yardage and scored a touchdown. I do not know for sure if Kareem Hunt or Clyde Edwards-Helaire or even Samaje Perine will be the best Chiefs running back rest of season, but I would bet lots and lots of money that it is not Carson Steele. You can hold him for 1 more week if you want to, just to make sure, but he's going to be dropped before he started again.
But he fumbled. I mean, he fumbled on his first carry, maybe his second carry. I think his first carry, his second touch.
Yeah, he fumbled on like his first or second carry of his career.
Yeah, so I think that just doomed him there because he started the game. He caught the pass on the first play.
But he's just not an NFL running back. Like, it was a fun story, and it's really neat that he has an alligator and long hair. But he's like, you know how slow Carson Steele is. He has long hair bouncing on his shoulder pads, and the hair doesn't even bounce. It doesn't move. It just lays on his shoulder pads while he runs.
Okay.
He played 19% of the snaps on top of it, just absolutely dominated by Hunt and Perine.
Kareem Hunt looked good.
Yeah, that's something I was kind of expecting a little bit. Just fresh legs, being back in camp. I don't know if he's going to look this good 3 weeks from now.
What in the world of the Dallas Cowboys doing?
The Chiefs need him.
Dave has been kind of the Kareem Hunt guy. We haven't really spoken about him with Heath so much because we haven't talked, waiver wire with Heath on the Tuesday show. But I know Dave is kind of favoring Hunt even a couple of weeks ago, I think. Mm-hmm. I've been kind of the Clyde guy. I thought Steele was the best one to get, but I've been getting a lot of Clyde. So we'll see what happens next week. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still very available, 17% rostered. Kareem Hunt is
around 50% available,
3% rostered. And the Chiefs, just seeing this report, they fear that it is a torn ACL for Rashee Rice. So,
did you see the play, how it happened?
I actually didn't.
Yep. Mahomes threw an interception and then kneecapped Rashee Rice on the same play.
So
Mahomes did?
Yeah.
Double damage.
Oh, man. All right, well, that's a big winner, DeAndre Swift, and a big loser, Rashee Rice. By the way, Jamey will be joining us.
Carson Steele was the big loser.
Sorry. Carson Steele. Hopefully, Jamey will be joining us soon. He's goes to the office, and then he comes home, so he's en route. We have obviously a lot of ways to listen to the podcast, but if you're not familiar, you can listen on Spotify, so go ahead and give us a follow there on Spotify. It's a good way to listen to the show, just like all the other ways, but Spotify is awesome, so go ahead and listen, or even if you're not going to listen, just go ahead and follow us on Spotify. All right, a quick segment here. Look at a couple of backfields. Tell me which running back you'd rather have rest of season. Travis Etienne or Tank Bigsby?
Still Etienne.
Etienne.
All right, so Bigsby's just been a better rusher this year, and I didn't know what happened. I thought Etienne got benched early in the game, and he was without his helmet on the sideline, and then turned out that he had some shoulder issue, and then they put him back in the game.
He only played 9 first-half snaps. In the second half, he played 62% of the snaps for Jacksonville. Bigsby had a big run, and he actually had more snaps inside the 5 than Etienne had for the game. But I still think Etienne's the running back to have in Jacksonville. I don't think that's a question.
Well, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't draft him in the middle of the second round if we were drafting again.
Nope.
Yeah, that was a tough one. All right, the other backfield, Rachaad White or Bucky Irving?
Bucky!
Heath, you have to sing your answer.
I probably would just stick with Rachaad White.
I don't know.
I still think White's going to handle the majority of the passing downs, and I think it's going to be pretty close to a 50-50 split when it comes to rush attempts. And maybe Bucky gets all of the goal line carries from now on, but the Buccaneers are probably going to score like 4 more rushing touchdowns the rest of the season based on what they do. So I'll lean White, but they're both flexes.
All right. And Irving was started in only 13% of leagues. He came in with an injury. Rachaad White started in 50% of leagues. They both had 10 carries for 49 yards. Bucky had the touchdown, the rushing touchdown. They both worked in near the goal line. And Rachaad White had 1 more catch.
And 30 more receiving yards.
Yeah. Rachaad White played 5 snaps on third down. Bucky Irving played 2 snaps on third down. Who's Travis Etienne or a Bucs running back rest of season?
I'll take Etienne.
Yeah, probably.
White had a catch of 22 yards on the first drive. He had a 17-yard run later on, and it kind of padded his day. Bucky Irving he made the second effort on a goal line carry, Bucky Irving.
Yeah.
And the refs didn't rule him in. Very next play, toss left to Irving, touchdown. I think he's going to continue to take rushing downs work away from Rachaad White. I agree with Heath that White is going to be a factor on passing downs. And if there's a game coming up for Tampa where we think they're going to be trailing big, then that could be good for Rachaad White. But they're at Atlanta, at New Orleans, Baltimore at home, Atlanta again at home, at Kansas City. You might have to wait till week 10, home against the 49ers. And even then, I don't know if that's a game where they're
it doesn't matter.
Trailing.
They won this game.
Pretty good.
It doesn't matter. They won this game by 3 scores, led 24-0 in the first half, and threw 47 passes and ran 25 times. They don't have run-heavy scripts.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It is a good point. That's fair. But at some point, the coaching staff has to see what we see, and the better runner is Bucky Irving. Just straight up talent.
If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use the bonus code FANTASY. All right, let's do it. You're gonna get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works: download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you're going to receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. We bring in our 4th member of the FFT crew. We bring in Jamey Eisenberg. What's up, Jamey? Start of the week. Boom.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore. Yeah, Chuba was great.
Chuba was great. I know he's a big winner for you. In fact, I'm going to let you talk about that. Chuba Hubbard, big winner for Jamey.
Look, it might have been his last opportunity to be the featured guy. Jonathan Brooks is expected to return to practice this week, so we'll see if he's activated and what kind of role both of these guys will have in tandem. I hope eventually Brooks takes over the job because I would like to see what he looks like in his rookie campaign. But, I mean, look, this is back-to-back great weeks for Chuba Hubbard with Andy Dalton under center, so you're seeing what this offense can look like and what this running game and running back can look like. So I'm excited to see what happens moving forward just with this backfield in general.
Who do you think plays third down snaps between Chuba and I almost said Bucky? Brooks, Chuba and Brooks. When Brooks is back.
I would be shocked initially if it's not Chuba.
Or what I'm afraid of is that's Miles Sanders. And Sanders still played more third down snaps than Chuba this week. So I'm a little nervous that there could be some sort of a split eventually that goes three ways. Hopefully it doesn't happen. Hopefully you're right. Chuba ends up getting that role and they roll that way. But 22 touches for Chuba. He looked good. Blocking was good. Better than I thought it would be.
The cruel irony could be that Chuba Hubbard's been so good, he's going to ruin two fantasy running backs, himself and Jonathan Brooks. That would suck.
Yeah, I think it's
Chuba right now, wouldn't you?
What?
If you could, you'd sell high on Chuba right now.
Oh, of course.
You
But
can't.
anybody buying that should understand what they're getting.
Yeah.
I would think the month of October is probably a messy situation until it shakes out. That one is getting more opportunities than the other.
All right, we're going to take a break, update you on all the injuries, including updates on Christian McCaffrey and Nick Chubb. Aaron Rodgers is beat up, Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson. We'll talk about it after this on Fantasy Football Today.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Another big day for Jordan Mason. So when is Christian McCaffrey coming back? According to Ian Rappaport, he's hoping for an early November return, maybe around, he didn't say this, but early November would be week 9. So that could be the time for McCaffrey. He's back from Germany after getting that treatment, and we'll see what happens there. Nick Chubb could start practicing this week. I guess he's making better than expected progress. So if he starts practicing, they have a 21-day window to activate him and get him going, or otherwise he's out for the season. But once he starts practicing off the PUP list, then that clock starts. So Nick Chubb could be back maybe this month or this upcoming October. Aaron Rodgers is dealing with issues in both of his legs. Saw him grabbing, I think, at his hamstring at one point in this game. He says he's okay. He's not going to miss time. Jonathan Taylor left with an ankle injury. He seemed optimistic about playing in week 5. So we'll cross our fingers there. And his teammate, Anthony Richardson, also might not miss any time. He has a hip issue. So maybe the Colts get some good reports and progress from their two.
It would be fantastic for Richardson because this is one of his easiest matchups that he'll get in week 5 against Jacksonville.
Speaking of Jacksonville, all right, so we knew I told you the Travis Etienne thing. We thought he had a shoulder injury. He came back in, I guess, hopefully fine. This was a tough one. Tyler Bidet left in the first quarter, took a big hit, and then it just kind of collapsed on the sideline. So I don't see an update on him, but let's hope that he is okay. And at that point, all 3 running backs had 1 carry. He had 2 catches. Bidet had 2 catches. McLaughlin had 1 catch. So it was a mess. And then Javonte Williams had a pretty good game for them. Cordell Patterson left in the second quarter. He was outperforming Najee Harris at that point. They both had 6 carries, but Patterson had 43 yards. Harris had 5. Harris ended up with a solid game. Rashee Rice is the big one. We already told you it could be a torn ACL. Tampa Bay wide receiver Trey Palmer left with a concussion. Christian Watson hurt his ankle. Not a soft tissue injury. He says he thinks it's just a sprain, but this is going to be a big waiver wire focal point. The Packers passing game. Tucker Kraft stepping up. Dontavian Wicks. Romeo Dobbs is still available in some leagues. But Christian Watson, pardon me.
Oh,
Christian, guys, say something about Christian Watson.
It looked ugly.
He left, Dontavian Wicks came alive in the second half. Kraft did too. And the guy who really came alive was Jordan Love. He was better than expected and threw a ton, huge numbers, obviously, but 3 interceptions kind of takes the shine off of the stat line. Not that fantasy managers are complaining if you started Jordan Love, but I think you can kind of see the direction that this Packers offense is going in. And if Christian Watson misses any time, Dontavian Wicks looks like he'll be the one to take over.
All right. And what else do I got here? Some guys. Oh, we lost one of our best tight ends, Taysom Hill. He left in the second quarter. He had already scored 2 touchdowns at this point, but he left, I think, with a chest injury or a neck injury.
Can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
Just, abdomen injury.
Abdomen. Okay. Yeah. Different than the chest injury that he previously had. Kittle left but came back. And then there's a bunch of offensive line news that I won't bore you with. Kyren Williams has scored in 7 straight games. That is the longest streak in the NFL per the broadcast on Fox. Oh, let's see that any big. Yeah, there were some big names that got hurt on defense. I don't know if any of them are huge, but Fred Warner was one of them for the 49ers. I mean, I don't know if any of them are long term. And then 3 players fumbled. Carson Steele fumbled, seemed to lose his job. Ramondre Stevenson fumbled. And then the big one was Madison. He fumbled. Not Madison. Zamir White fumbled, returned for a touchdown. He really let the Browns back in the game. Madison was in on the next drive. I don't know if White ever got back in the game. It was in the 4th quarter. Maybe late.
Looking at it right now.
Yeah, so that's one to keep an eye on here.
He played 2 more snaps. It happened in the 4th quarter. He played 2 more snaps after that.
Yeah. So, they're trying to salt the game away, and it wasn't really with Zamir White after he fumbled. So that's one to keep an eye on. All right, who's worried? How you guys feeling? Anybody a little worried today? A little worried?
Like about what?
Well, you're about to be. Worryometer. Worryometer is here. What is your worryometer 0 to 10, your level for Breece Hall, who had an absolutely miserable game with 18 total yards and is kind of being outplayed by Braylon Allen on a per carry basis? Worryometer 0 to 10 on Breece Hall.
1. He spoke before the game on CBS Sports HQ with Evan Washburn, and he said he's happy that Braylon Allen is getting this opportunity and that they're sharing work. And I wanted to reach through the screen and just choke him and say, no, don't say that.
We're not happy.
Don't be happy about that.
Yeah, I'll put it in perspective. I'll put it in a scale. 0 to 10 on the worryometer for him being elite, like a top 3 running back.
5.
6.5.
6.
Okay.
Look, he still played 71% of the snaps. He still dominated on 3rd downs. 2 of the 3 snaps inside the 5 that the Jets had, he was on. So he's still getting a lot of the high value touches and a ton of playing time. Just had a crappy game. Really crappy.
He's still averaging like 18.5 touches per game. He's just going to have to be good with them.
Yeah, and a lot of catches too, which really helped. So and that was for those of you who didn't see it, the weather was bad. It was just an ugly, ugly day, and that horrible game, just an eyesore. Bo Nix had -7 passing yards in the first half.
It was crazy.
I tweeted, I think at one point, Cortland Sutton had 60 of Denver's 53 receiving yards because the rest of the team had -7. So just kind of a wild day.
The fact that they won that game is incredible.
Horrible loss for the Jets.
Yep.
All right, what else? Oh, Josh Jacobs on the worryometer. Jacobs had 9 carries for 51 yards and 4 catches for 27 yards. I mean, it's not that bad of a game considering they got down, what was it, 28-0, whatever it was.
Yep.
But Emmanuel Wilson is playing a lot too. He had 8 carries to Jacobs 9. The week before, Wilson had 12 carries and Jacobs had 14. So 0 to 10 on Josh Jacobs, worryometer.
4.
3.
Justifying his ADP, I'll say 6.
Right. If you're going to add that context, I would agree.
And
he is one of my losers this week because I think people are going to start asking questions about him. I think I could actually make the case that he's a good buy low after this game. He's got a good schedule coming up. 3 of his next 4 opponents are favorable matchups. The thing that worries me is just how many carries is he going to keep losing to Wilson along the way? And if it's going to be close to 50-50, then yes, he will not return value. That worryometer shouldn't be a 6. It should be a 10 on the contextual worryometer. But I still think he's got some good games ahead.
This was my fear for him at the start of training camp when Marshawn Lloyd was still healthy, was that I thought he would lose some touches to somebody else there. I didn't really anticipate it being A.J. Dillon, and certainly did not anticipate it being Emmanuel Wilson. And so then when everybody started getting banged up, I got more excited about Josh Jacobs. I thought, okay, he's going to completely dominate touches now, and they'll sprinkle somebody else in. The sprinkling in has become what I thought Marshawn Lloyd would get. And so that's kind of the concern. But I still think, you walk away from this game, like you said, Adam, they were down 28-0. The fact that he got more involved in the passing game, you talked about this with the quarterback switch, going back from Malik Willis to Jordan Love, we were at the end of the week last week. This is what you're hoping for, because the rushing numbers will still be sustainable to a better level than this. If he's getting 3 to 4 catches a week, that's going to be huge for him.
Well, he set a record today. Most catches by a running back without a touchdown ever.
Oh, good for him.
Congratulations.
if there is a silver lining, it's that he did have a more efficient game than Wilson. So what if Wilson's running out of gas here and Jacobs is just in prime position to blow the doors off this? And maybe 2 weeks from now, we'll be saying this was nothing to worry about.
All right, back to the worryometer. 0 to 10 on Garrett Wilson. 5 catches for 41 yards on 8 targets. In 4 games, he has 60, 57, 33, and 41 yards and 1 touchdown for Garrett Wilson. 0 to 10.
So we're starting a new segment every Sunday on HQ called The Eliminator. And it's what Patrick Surtain does to elite receivers.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
He is so good, huh?
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that, it's not all him. Clearly the defense has been very good for the Broncos, but just number 1 receivers against Denver, they just don't perform well. Now, weather factored into this
next week.
I don't know. I'm just not starting number 1 receivers against the Broncos at all.
Yeah.
All right. Garrett Wilson's next 3 matchups: Minnesota, Buffalo, at Pittsburgh.
And then New England, which just shut him down more or less because Gonzalez is really good.
After that, I'm going to go ahead and put an 8.5 on the worryometer for Garrett Wilson.
Wow.
That's a 6 or a 7 for sure. Like all the props in the world to Pat Surtain, but this is not a 1 week thing. Like 9.1 is not that far from Garrett Wilson's PPR per game average. It's
yeah. But can you buy the argument that he has had the toughest schedule of any wide receiver?
Did you hear what Dave just said about his next month?
It's not Surtain, it's not Snead, it's not Gonzalez. It is Gonzalez 4 weeks from now. But his next 3 games are not the wide receivers that shadow other the cornerbacks that shadow number 1 receivers and do a really good job.
I hope so. But like we were talking about him like he was Devontae Adams. Like he was a borderline first round pick. And with Aaron Rodgers, we didn't see this type of dip in production from Devontae Adams just because he was facing a good corner.
That's true. Yeah.
I will say this, though, just to make people worry more. How did you start the news and notes segment?
Christian McCaffrey's coming back.
Keep going.
Nick Chubb could start practicing. Oh, Aaron Rodgers is dealing with injuries.
Yeah, I mean that's probably the biggest thing is that if that guy misses, and we have to go to Tyrod Taylor, while not a huge drop off by comparison to what we had last year, could be awful.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see who should I compare him to
on a summer's day?
So if you go back to the draft process, like I know this one's killing me is Nico Collins. That's an easy one to say. You would be drafting him way ahead of Garrett Wilson, and he would be a first rounder. I think you have to put him behind. I'll just go by my rankings. I put him behind Drake London and Chris Olave right now. I put him behind Marvin Harrison right now. Those are guys that I was saying should go after Garrett Wilson, who was a late first round pick. And obviously, there's a lot more guys that we can start to go down the line and say, okay, this guy. But there's still the hope and the potential of what he can be. It's just a matter of like this game was going to be bad, and then you factored in the weather. It wasn't good, So you want to throw it out and just say the expectation was bad. Like this next month is going to be telling.
Do you want to hear his schedule from week 10 on, or
no?
It's a lot better than what the next month has in store.
He already, by the way, he had more yards against Surtain than Metcalf, Pickens, or who was
very true. He actually ruined a player prop bet that
I forgot the other guy that the Denver faced. Okay, DJ Moore 0 to 10 on the worryometer.
For me, he's going to be pretty high. I'd probably call it a 7. I said 7.
6.
Yeah, I mean, he's not judged on the same scale as Garrett Wilson, right?
Right. Well,
right.
It's just in general.
I wasn't a DJ Moore guy coming into the year, so this is par for the course for me. There's going to have bad games and everybody's healthy.
4. I think he's probably a number 3 wide receiver. I thought he was a borderline number 2 at the beginning of the year, so I'm a little worried he's not a borderline number 2. But hopefully Caleb Williams is going to be better in the second half of the season.
He was open again. I mean, I know he caught a touchdown, but he also was open for like a 20-ish yard touchdown, and that's an NFL throw that you have to make. And Caleb Williams just missed it, and he didn't miss it. He missed it badly.
He did.
Brandon Aiyuk, 2 catches for 48 yards on 5 targets. Was he shadowed by Christian Gonzalez? No. He did see a decent amount of Christian Gonzalez, though. But another bad performance for Aiyuk. I mean, this is four out of 4. He has not scored 10 PPR fantasy points yet. 0 to 10 on the worryometer.
7.
At least a 6.
Yeah, I think it has to be. I mean, you can't put Juwan Jennings back in the box after what he did. He led the team in targets today.
Led the team in targets, led the team in receiving yards.
So if you had a team that was starting fresh, didn't have a record, you were starting in week 5, and your wide receivers were Garrett Wilson, Brandon Aiyuk, and DJ Moore, would you feel good about that, or bad, or medium? Like, how would you feel about that?
I would feel like I had no idea what was going to happen in week 5.
Okay.
I think again, you look at the landscape of the receiving position. Puka's now out reportedly until week 8. We don't know when Cooper Kupp's coming back. AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are on a bye in week 5. We hope they're back in week 6. Devontae Adams, who knows what his status is with his hamstring injury. Like, it's bad, so if you're getting guys that are at least healthy, that have the chance to be good and have been great at clearly points in their season, Rashee Rice now out, clearly points in their career last year, like you still sign up for it, but it's not as encouraging as it was before the season started.
All right, let's spin it positive here and take a look at some winners and losers from fantasy week 4. So we had the big winner at the top of the show was DeAndre Swift from Dave. Heath, Jamey talked about Chuba Hubbard. Jamey's other winner is Kyren Williams, who, as I mentioned, has scored in 7 straight games. What would you like to say about Kyren Williams?
That he's just continuing to dominate the snaps and be the guy for the Rams. And I know I was concerned coming into the season with the offensive line and whatever was going to happen with the backups there, mostly Blake Corum, and it just has not materialized at all. I don't know how much the wide receiver injuries maybe changed some of the plans for the Rams, but I doubt it. So he's locked and loaded as a top 5 running back until proven otherwise.
Did you happen to see his first half against Chicago?
It was bad.
Really bad. Second half, 11 carries, 60 yards, and a touchdown. 3 of his 4 catches in the second half. They gave him the ball. He got going, and this offense had a chance. They had a chance to take down Chicago.
Yeah, they did.
This is the identity of their offense. Kyren Williams. If I had told you that a year and a half ago, you would have thought I was insane. But it's really what it's come down to, especially now with the injuries to the receivers.
All right, let's go to Dave's winners here. We got Brian Thomas Jr., 6 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets and 13 rushing yards at Houston. And he already talked about DeAndre Swift. So, booyah, big game for Brian Thomas Jr., who's only started in 32% of leagues.
That's going to start changing. He's an outstanding bye week replacement. And by the time the bye weeks are done, he might be a number 2 receiver. He's the most explosive receiver that the Jaguars have. But this was a week where the Jaguars finally stopped throwing like crazy to Gabe Davis. And Brian Thomas was excellent on downfield throws. He caught a 2-yard touchdown early on in the game. He's really good. And this is also a Jacksonville team that's probably going to be trailing in a lot of games moving forward. So I think there's definitely room for him to finish the year very, very strong.
It was a tough loss for them today. Losing at the very end there to the Houston Texans. And Heath, your winners. This is a fun list here for you. Josh Downs, 19% rostered. Xavier Legette, 31% rostered. Downs had 82 yards and a touchdown on 9 targets. Legette had 66 yards and a touchdown on 10 targets. If they're both available on waivers on Tuesday, which one are you prioritizing?
Well, I think you have to go Legette because it's more likely that Andy Dalton's starting the next month than it is that Joe Flacco's starting the next month. But it was the first game without Adam Thielen, 25% target share for Legette. He was productive on those, made one really nice catch on the sideline. I think we're going to continue to see Andy Dalton, and we're going to continue to see 35 to 40 pass attempts. He's the clear number 2 behind Deontay Johnson in this offense, and Dalton's going to have a pass offense that probably produces 250 plus yards per game, which is pretty great in the NFL these days. Downs, listen, it's probably not as good for him if Anthony Richardson is back, but 2 games that he's played now, he has 14 targets, which is the same number as Michael Pittman. That's kind of what we saw last year, is he was kind of a 1A, 1B situation with Michael Pittman. He should certainly be rostered in more than 19% of leagues. I think that's probably closer to 45 or 50. And it might turn out that next week he's tied for the lead in team targets again, and it should be even higher than that.
I'm just going to go ahead and say that we, for their sake, for Pittman's sake, for Josh Downs' sake, would prefer Flacco.
Oh,
I
yes.
think, yeah. I think I said that.
Well, yeah. You said it's more likely, right? But that Dalton. Okay, I'm sorry if I missed that. Yeah. So Flacco obviously is going to be better for the receivers, but like Richardson apparently is not expected to miss a lot of time, maybe not any time with this issue. All right, let's go to the losers. Heath, Carson, Steele is one of your losers, but so is his buddy Patrick Mahomes, 19 of 29, 245 yards and a touchdown and an interception. He scored 15 points at the Chargers, and he hit the big play to Xavier Worthy and really not much else. And now if Rashee Rice is out long-term, you know I'm about to ask.
Yeah, you might be. I mean, somebody might drop Patrick Mahomes. I'm probably going to keep Patrick Mahomes on my roster, but I'm going to be looking for a streamer every week to see if there's one that I like better than him. It's once again one of the worst wide receiving cores in the NFL. And he's not been a good fantasy starter for more than a calendar year. So the Chiefs have a bye. I think you say week 6, Dave?
It's week 6.
So they'll play next week against the Saints. And if you can find somebody that you on the waiver wire that ranks higher than Patrick Mahomes, I have no problem with you starting that person over Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to drop him, but I understand some people are going to. It's a bad situation.
Adam, let's lay out this scenario. Patrick Mahomes plays at the 49ers, and he's been producing like he's been producing. Would you feel comfortable starting him in that game?
No, I know that's right after their bye.
That's right.
I'm not comfortable starting him next week against the Saints.
Right.
Yeah, no. I traded for him this morning, but part of a 6-player deal, and I might drop him. I think he's my worst player. And you know who my starting quarterback is? This is probably why I won't drop him. It's Baker Mayfield. Like 100% I'm starting Baker Mayfield, right now, but I don't know that I trust him that much to drop Mahomes. But I mean, they don't really have a good offense. They don't have a special offense, that's for sure.
I am resigned to the fact that I cannot use him in the fantasy playoffs. This is week 15 through 17 at Cleveland, Houston, at Pittsburgh. The matchup between that game against the 49ers and the fantasy playoffs are really favorable.
It'll be interesting to see who his receivers are at that point.
Right.
They're not gonna go to the playoffs with Sky Moore and Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, I mean, they basically did last year, but you saw Kelsey get going today, so that's a positive. You saw the big play to Xavier Worthy, that's a positive. They had a big third down play where Worthy crossed the formation. I think they got to do a little bit more of that, just get him moving, and some easy throws where you just get him out in space and see what he can do. The trade deadline is going to be huge for them. Can they? I think that's your point, Heath. Will they be aggressive in trying to get somebody off someone's scrap heap? They're not going to get Devontae Adams. I'd be shocked if that trade happens in the division. Right, but is there somebody else that's on a losing team? Where they'll give up a draft pick to go get someone. Maybe the Dolphins want to part ways with Tyreek Hill if they're out of it. It's just. I did my I like to do Sunday afternoon just a quick quarterback rankings for the following week. Mahomes 15th, that's where he came out.
I think I'm going to settle on. I need another quarterback if I've got Patrick Mahomes, but I'm not ready to give him up. I'm definitely not going to sell low on Mahomes, and I don't see myself dropping him unless I really need the roster space, and he's legitimately the worst player on my bench.
Buy or sell, Travis Kelce is the number 1 tight end in fantasy rest of season.
So,
yeah. For me, I'll go week to week with this position, so I'll buy because he's number 1 for me next week.
Okay.
I'll sell because I'm taking the field over a 34-year-old tight end, but obviously he's going to start to get huge target volume.
Yeah, big game today for him. All right, Dave's losers, Bijan Robinson and Josh Jacobs. Let's talk about Bijan. 7 carries for 28 yards, 4 catches for 46 yards. It's pretty similar to what's going on in the Jets backfield in the sense that Algiers getting carries and Algiers doing well with them, and Bijan's not as efficient as he should be. Should point out he had a touchdown catch called back, but yeah, I mean, what's your concern level for Bijan?
I was going to start with the touchdown that's called back to try and make people feel better, but he just forget about splitting touches for a second. He hasn't been worth the first round pick that we took him.
No.
So that makes me nervous. Splitting with Algier makes me nervous. We know the offensive line's in rough shape moving forward. We know Kirk Cousins isn't exactly a great quarterback anymore. It feels like Bijan Robinson is going to have to be viewed as more of like a high-end RB2. and not a
Oh,
slam dunk stud RB1.
oh my goodness. That means you'd be taking guys like Aaron Jones ahead of him. And I mean,
Well, I would certainly start Aaron Jones ahead of him.
I can't imagine they're going to be. I hope there aren't 12 better running backs than Bijan rest of season. But I mean, I get your frustration.
He ranks in fantasy points per game.
Not even top 20.
No.
Yeah, I think he was like somewhere around 18th going into the game, if I'm not
So
mistaken.
I could trade you Aaron Jones for Bijan Robinson right now.
I didn't say I would do that, but I would consider that. And a week or two ago, I would have laughed in your face.
Well, I don't even think you
If I
have
got
to.
Ty Chandler with him, I think I might do that trade.
You don't even have to go to the old guy though. Like you could just say Saquon and Etienne and James Cook and Kyren Williams and like I think there's enough of those guys.
I wouldn't trade Saquon to get Bijan. I mean, they were back to back for me in my rankings preseason, so I would rather have Saquon.
Would you rather have Kyren Williams or Bijan?
I'd rather have Kyren right now. Yeah.
Gibbs?
Yes.
Probably Gibbs.
How about Montgomery or Bijan?
No, Bijan.
How the
They're both-
hell did the Falcons win today, by the way? What a ridiculous win.
So
They scored 2 defensive touchdowns.
Yeah,
thing-
just ridiculous win.
the thing that I look at with Bijan is twofold. One, you would have told me DeMario Davis is out in this matchup. I would have said, okay, Bijan to the moon.
Sure.
Just the Saints missing their best linebacker. The other part of it is like they're down 2 offensive linemen. I don't think those are long-term injuries unless I'm mistaken. So those guys come back, and I still think there's just so much upside with Bijan. I'm not going to bail on him by any stretch yet.
All right.
I don't think the advice is to bail on him, but Adam, you were right. He was 18th in full PPR coming into the week on a per game basis, 20th in non PPR. And I think that's how you got to look at him now, as more of a number 2 RB.
He's still going to be a must start, though. I don't think people are ready to bench him yet, but fair enough. All right. Jamey, after this, we'll take a break, but your biggest loser, the Cleveland Browns.
That team stinks.
Their offensive line is, I don't like to make excuses, but their pass protection is
Oh, their offensive line is a big part of it.
But they also had an 82-yard touchdown to Amari Cooper.
Fall back on holding, yeah.
Bad call. I don't like that call. The broadcaster didn't like the call.
Fair enough. Deshaun Watson is awful. He is absolutely atrocious. I don't know how he forgot to play football so badly, so quickly, that the 4th down play to end the game, why in the world is he going to his left?
Because he was flushed, wasn't he? And
No,
nobody.
well, first off, he either steps up and make the throw quickly. He has no decision making at all. But like you're not getting that ball off. But you say no Max Crosby against that defense. He should have had a field day. I don't care about the offensive line. He should have played much better.
Well, you should care about the offensive line because the offensive line is in such a bad state right now. But no, he stinks.
What offensive line's in a great state right now?
Oh, theirs might be the worst in football right now. I mean, they're missing 3 starters, right? And did another one leave? I don't remember, but they're just horrible. Okay, no, you know what? Let's just talk about Amari Cooper. Do you start him, or is he more of a sit? They're at Washington next week.
As we're getting to bye weeks and as we're getting to injuries, of course you're starting Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
And like you said, the penalty was bad, and you still see what he can be. You saw it 2 weeks ago. So yes, you're starting him, but that doesn't, they can still be bad. It's hard to get away what he still can be. And yes, the matchup is great, but Deshaun Watson sucks. Play Jameis.
If you chase targets, Amari Cooper has had 8 or more targets in every game this year. You might be thinking he's eventually going to turn things around. It's a call.
Jerry Judy's he's been 11.5 PPR points or more in 3 or 4 games. So number 3 receiver, he's still there. Jerome Ford saved himself with the receptions today. The matchup was so great. He didn't take advantage of it. So we'll see what happens when Chubb comes back. Hopefully Chubb is right, when he's healthy. But this just offense is so brutal to watch. I can't imagine what Kevin Stefanski's thinking. He has to hate Deshaun Watson.
Well, the dumbest thing they ever did was decide we're going to and you heard this at the beginning of the season. I think you said it. They're going to go more pass, or Dave did. They're going to go more pass heavy than they ever have. And Jerome Ford averaged 8.8 yards per carry today.
He had a big run late to help him with that.
Yeah, look, they stink. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back and get into all the games and tell you what you missed. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
I don't know if I did this on the air or off the air or whatever it was, but I'm going to do it again. I owe Dave an apology. I was a little dismissive. I think it was a week ago
When you gave him a nickname?
No, not that. That's not that. I already apologized for that. But no, he was like, yeah, Chase Brown's going to take over. And I don't know, I'm not saying he did, but, you know, Derrick Henry. Chase Brown is, I'm sorry, totally distracted by what Derrick Henry just did. So anyway, Dave was like, Chase Brown's going to take over the backfield. I was like, what are you talking about? There's no evidence of that. I don't know that it's actually happening, but which running back would you rather have rest of season, Chase Brown or Zach Moss?
Yes.
Today really complicated that question.
Chase Brown looks so much better.
Yeah, I think the clock's ticking on Chase Brown becoming the 1A at minimum, if not just like running away from Zach Moss, and Moss is like a third down back for them.
87-yard touchdown. So, yeah, they both had 15 carries. Moss had more catches, 4 catches. They both scored. Chase Brown had 2 goal line touchdowns. They both worked near the goal line, but that's like Zach Moss has to dominate that role near the goal line, and he didn't. He is going to be the pass protector, but I don't know. Are they both kind of flexes, RB2s?
I mean, they did play Carolina, so keep that in mind.
Right.
It's such a great matchup. The one thing that I'll go back to is desperate teams change things at times. And when you're 0-3, you're trying to change things up a little bit to whatever is working. So you saw Chase Brown get a bigger role, and he took advantage of it. I'm going to say what I said from the beginning of this, and this is credit to Dave many years ago, is that Zach Moss's injury history is very well documented. So at some point that may rear its head again, and then Chase Brown can definitely run away with the job. So if you're banking on something long-term, I would bank on Chase Brown. The short-term, though, I mean, Zach Moss has now had 3 of 4 very productive games. 2 of them, or one of them was just because he scored a touchdown in week 1. But the last 2 weeks, he's been very involved in the passing game. He's done a great job getting the opportunities he's done a great job taking advantage of the opportunities that he's had. So why would you get away from that as a fantasy manager? So if you have 2, if you drafted both, I'm still probably going to start Moss in the short term over Chase Brown. But I definitely want to make sure. I think Chase Brown's roster percentage was in the 70s. I want to make sure he's 100% rostered. 10-team leagues, some 8-team leagues. You know, if he's out there, go pick him up because the future could be bright for him.
He had a miserable first half. Adam, if you had asked me this at halftime, I would have said it's already happening. Chase Brown's the man, and Zach Moss is a dud. 4 carries, 8 yards at halftime. But he got going in the second half, really made a great improvisational play where he caught the ball. He slipped. A tackler slipped. He got away from him, and he barreled in for the touchdown. 11 carries, 43 yards in the second half with the 21-yard touchdown catch. If I've got Chase Brown, I'm wondering if I can get Zach Moss for relatively cheap. If I've got Zach Moss and I don't have Chase Brown, I'm going to try and flip Zach Moss, maybe for whatever I can get, but certainly go to the Chase Brown manager and say, you're going to need this guy to help you out in the next couple of weeks. You should go and take him. But I'm going to try and play hot potato with Zach Moss.
All right, Heath, what's your thoughts on T. Higgins versus Deontay Johnson rest of season?
T. Higgins versus Deontay Johnson rest of season?
You get the hard-hitting questions.
Not even close.
I think Deontay Johnson's a top 12 wide receiver for as long as Andy Dalton is a starting quarterback. And T. Higgins is
take on filet mignon versus White Castle.
Hey, man.
Look, T. Higgins is the number 2 wide receiver that will have some good weeks, and will have some weeks where you wonder why you started him.
I'm sorry to
10 targets.
T. Higgins by calling him White Castle.
All right.
I'm not insulting him. I just said he's the number 2 wide receiver.
I'm just mad at Dave for you know what, Dave? I take back my apology for the Chase Brown.
Call me Belly again.
Okay. Anybody concerned about Jamar Chase? He has not had more than 6 targets in a game. 7 targets in a game.
Puka Nakua, Cooper Kupp, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Devontae
Deontay
Adams,
Johnson,
Rashee
Deontay
Rice. No,
Johnson,
I'm not
Jamar
concerned
Chase.
about Jamar Chase.
Deontay Johnson or Jamar Chase?
Jamar Chase.
Okay. All right, moving on. Minnesota 31, Green Bay 29. Sam Darnold with 28 passes and 3 touchdowns. That's below his touchdown rate going into the is it? I don't know. It's right around there. So, yeah, he keeps throwing touchdowns and still hasn't thrown more than 28 passes. Do you guys think you'll trust Jordan Addison going forward? He scored 2 touchdowns today, one of them rushing.
He had fewer targets in this game than Aaron Jones. He is the very definition of a boom bust flex. And you got the boom this week. If you happen to start him, fantastic. 4 teams on a bye this week. You might be in a position where you need to start him again, but I don't think there's any floor there.
All right. Are you going to pick up Dontavian Wicks or Romeo Doubs?
Wicks.
Assuming that Watson's going to miss time, Wicks.
All right. I think we pretty much covered this game. Unless you want to say something about Jordan Love. Would you rather have Jordan Love or
Sean Watson? Let's keep up the hard-hitting questions.
Patrick Ball. No, I mean CJ Stroud or Jordan Love.
Again, I'm going to go week by week, and Jordan Love gets the Rams next week. Not that I think Stroud has a good matchup. No, Stroud has Buffalo, right?
Stroud's got Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm going to take Jordan Love. Jordan Love might be my start of the week next week.
Nice call.
We had a great question from Scott in the chat. Is Jaden Reed a top 10 wide receiver rest of season? 277 receiving yards in 2 games with Jordan Love this year.
He's awesome.
And now Watson may be out. Yeah. Top 10, no, but top 15. He's in that conversation.
Jaden Reed or Deontay Johnson?
Deontay.
Yeah.
I think I'll take the receiver that's had at least 13 targets in 2 straight games with Andy Dalton, but it wasn't a slam dunk answer for me right away. I was a huge fan of Jaden Reed coming into the year, ended up taking him ahead of Christian Watson in a lot of drafts. I'm thrilled. I also don't know how many games Jordan Love's going to throw the ball 54 times.
Right.
That kind of matters a little bit. That's what really helped Wicks and Reed, and they had, a great game statistically because of it. But moving forward, if Watson misses time, I think those are his top 2 targets.
I will say that Deontay Johnson, like every Deontay Johnson answer is for as long as Andy Dalton is the starting quarterback.
That's also fair. I think Reed's got staying power even if Watson comes back. Like
Houston 24, Jacksonville 20. And yeah, I mean, at least a little bit of waking up for Trevor Lawrence. 169 yards and 2 touchdowns. Another good game for Kirk. Another good game for Thomas. The running backs, we already talked about them. That's a mess. I don't know if there's. All right. Do you think Christian Kirk remains, a reliable starter when Evan Ingram comes back, and Brian Thomas for that matter?
I think, as Dave said about Thomas, like this is only going to continue to improve and grow his role. So we see this with rookie wide receivers all the time, right? The second half is typically better than the first half, and if that's the case, then he could be a monster. As they continue to lean on him. I am anticipating a coaching change at some point for the Jaguars because Doug Peterson is looking lost. Team is looking fractured, and just some of the things you're hearing out of that place, like. It might be time just to, end this relationship. And so how much will that change depending on who the next coach is that comes in, or if it's somebody that is on staff, but it doesn't feel like there's a clear heir apparent. I think you just treat Kirk as, a borderline number 2, number 3 receiver who's better in PPR than non, and hope that what we saw last year was slow start, ended up being a pretty consistent player until he got hurt. The thing about Thomas, though, is, there'll be a few down weeks, but there's just so much potential. Like, you want to keep him in your lineup as much as you can if you start 3 receivers.
All right. And then I think we know what the Texans are. We're looking forward to hopefully Joe Mixon getting back next week. By the way, reading the recap of this game from the AP, Coach Doug Peterson seemed caught off guard when he was asked if he was worried about his job status after the dismal start. My status? I mean, no, he said. That's kind of a strange question, but okay. I mean, I'm kind of dramatizing it and reading it in my own interpretation, but those are the words.
I'd be a little bit more dramatic.
I could have been. My job? Okay. Denver 10, Jets 9. It was worse than that. I watched it. It was just awful. Bo Nix threw his first touchdown. Cortland Sutton, hooray. He was started in 9% of leagues, but he's 72% rostered. So you can get Cortland Sutton. That's 9 or more targets, I think, in 3 or 4 games. Yeah, 3 or 4 games. Not much else. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, with Tyler Bidet getting hurt, and I hope he's okay, seriously. But yeah, Javonte Williams with 16 carries and 2 catches. Heath, I know you've been disappointed with him, but do you think this is a second chance for Javonte?
I assume Sean Payton's going to find some other undrafted free agent that another team cut and try to force him into the number 1 running back role.
Audric Esime could come off of IR soon.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly got to be somebody else that's just been cut. Javonte Williams is a flex, and this is an awful offense that now apparently has a good defense, which makes their awful offense somehow even worse.
In decimal scoring, in a game where he had 16 carries for 77 yards, he finished with 10.0 PPR points.
Which was like, what, 3 times Breece Hall's
output? That's like a good game for him this year, too.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Let's talk about Allen Lazard, 62% rostered, 5 for 58 on 8 targets. So that's, that's 3 good games. If this is a good game, 10.8 fantasy points.
He's been better than Garrett Wilson 3 of 4 weeks or every week?
3 of 4 weeks.
3 of 4. Yeah, week 2, Garrett Wilson was better. I don't know. Anybody buying into Lazard, or just kind of going to cycle in and out of the waiver wire?
He was on my list of guys you could pick up as a bye week replacement, getting ahead of the waiver wire in week 5. But
the number 3 wide receiver.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Minnesota in Europe next week, and that's going to be a tough matchup for Rodgers. I think I'd look for somebody else.
Not another receiver getting hurt.
Oh, who got hurt?
Shakir.
Hey.
No.
All right. Chicago 24, Rams 18. Tutu Atwell, I mean, that was cool. 4 for 82 on 6. That's 2 straight games with 5 or 6 targets that he's turned into more than 80 yards. So
he got off to a slow start and then started to come through in the second half. And it was Jordan Whittington that got off to a fast start. Like every time Stafford got pressured, he went to Whittington. And so, like, I think Tutu's going to be the number 1, but I wonder if it's going to be Whittington who's the number 2 moving forward.
It's a gross offense, and I think we should probably just ignore them all, except for
5 week guys more than anything else, right?
Like Colby Parkinson has like a 24% target share. I think maybe even leads the team since without Kupp and Nakua.
Yeah,
and he scored 7 points on 7 targets today.
Does that make him a top 12 tight end this week?
Probably.
Roshan Johnson, 55% rostered. Did get a touchdown, short yardage touchdown. Is that porridge too hot, too cold, or just right? 55% rostered.
0 targets, 7 for Swift.
Weird.
Swift was awesome. I mean, what a crappy call by me to drop him.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you can get him back. But
I'm not saying me personally. I'm saying to advise people to drop him. Like he was awful for the first 3 weeks.
I don't know how many people did. I think his roster.
Well, he's still rostered 90+% of leagues, so it's probably 10 leagues.
Good. So people hold on. That's fine.
Yeah, but I mean, I have to hold myself accountable for bad advice, and that was bad advice. He looked great, and hopefully it's something that's sustainable.
Roshan did play on 6 of 9 third downs. He had the 1 snap at the goal line. It was set up by a Rams defensive pass interference call.
55%. Too hot, too cold, just right.
Just right.
Fine.
All right. There we go.
We'll be dropping him in a few weeks.
Drop or hold Keenan Allen and Roma Dunze.
Hold.
Very similar to Roshan. Drop if you need, hold if you can.
You might be starting those guys at wide receiver.
Atlanta 26, New Orleans 24, and a miracle win for the Falcons. They scored 26 points without scoring an offensive touchdown. They had the ball for 24 minutes and 18 seconds. So we talked about Bijan. I think you can be at least encouraged by Drake London just getting so many targets. I know he didn't have a good game, but he had 12 targets. It wasn't bad. 6 for 64.
Same rate as Colby Parkinson. 12 fantasy points on 12 targets.
Parkinson had 12 targets?
7. He had 7 on 7, a point per target.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
We got to talk about Kyle Pitts.
Do we even need to bring that man up?
Yes.
But yeah, you're right. 0 catches.
I have nothing to say.
Go ahead, Heath. 3 targets, no catches for Pitts.
Like, there's a lot of tight ends that we've just been starting only because we drafted them in the single digit rounds, and nobody else is any good, so we just keep starting them. And Kyle Pitts was probably in that group, and he had 1 good play against the Chiefs, and he had a touchdown in another game. but they just do not care at all about him. The coaching staff was asked about it after the game. Stats are for losers.
That's what they said?
That's what they said.
Raheem Morris said, yeah.
Raheem Morris.
Oh my. Well, he doesn't play fantasy.
He does not. And apparently stats are not for losers because Kyle Pitts didn't have any stats in this game.
Oh, man. Yeah, drop him.
What else are you going to do?
I think you got to put him in the same category as Mahomes at this point, right? Like, if you need to move on from him, you do.
Yeah. Future Hall of Famer just not getting it done.
Who's the future Hall of Famer?
Mahomes. I was
okay.
saying.
Not Pitts.
No, it was a joke. It was a joke.
It looks like Shakira's okay.
Woohoo! Kamara is certainly okay, but Kamara certainly probably benefited from the Taysom Hill injury. But the thing is that's so nice about Kamara is that even if he doesn't score, he's still giving you a lot of points in half and full PPR. Olave, good game. Shaheed, good game. Do you trust Shaheed? He's coming off a 0 catch game, and he goes for 8 for 83 on 11 targets. He was started in 48% of leagues. They have the Chiefs next week. Are you going to trust Rashid Shaheed?
Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Rashee Rice.
Yeah, but that's tough. At the Chiefs, that's tough.
He's in the same bucket as Jordan Addison.
I think he has more targets than Chris Olave on the season.
He does. Hey, look, I'm just glad that Olave had a nice game after all the drama that we had since Friday.
All right. Tampa Bay 33, Philadelphia 16. Bucks had the ball for over 36 minutes. Jalen Hurts with 18.3 fantasy points. If you play it against Saquon Barkley, you picked the right week to do it. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great. Goddard was what we expected. I mean, not amazing, but 7 catches for 62 yards. How about Baker Mayfield?
Early in the fourth quarter.
Oh, I didn't see that. I'm sorry. I had no idea.
Yeah, left early.
Wait, all right. Jamey, what do you think about Baker Mayfield with his second game out of 4 with 32.9 or more fantasy points against Washington and Philadelphia? So the matchups were good. He's also scored 2 rushing touchdowns this year. That's unusual for him. He's had one season with more than 1 rushing touchdown in his career, and he's done it now with 2 touchdowns in 4 games. But is he just the matchups guy? Because at Atlanta, at New Orleans, Baltimore, Atlanta, at Kansas City, San Francisco, those are not great matchups. Or is he a viable starter?
Said one bad game, really going back to November. And it was against Denver, which maybe we guys just start giving Denver some credit for being a really good pass defense or good against quarterbacks. So, again, with the way the quarterback position looks right now, with the way this guy's producing, with the receiving core that he has, and the lack of a consistent run game and the fact that his running backs can both catch passes, absolutely he's a must-start quarterback. I don't care what the matchup is. Like you'll take some hits. If the matchup is like truly, truly awful, like I don't think Atlanta qualifies, you're starting him. And you said it about your team. I think that's probably true across the board. You're starting him over Mahomes. You're starting him over Richardson right now. 2 guys that were certainly drafted ahead of him. We'll see what happens with Goff. I would feel more comfortable with Mayfield right now. I would have said that going into this game. Forget about the results for Mayfield. So with just how he's performed and should hopefully continue to perform, 100%. Hopefully the offensive line continues to get healthy too.
Adam, he had 27 fantasy points at halftime.
Yeah.
3 touchdowns at halftime. He was absolutely insane. Awesome ball placement on his touchdown to Trey Palmer, who was just absolutely covered by Darius Slay. He's got everything that we talk about. Great receiving core, offensive line. It wasn't great today. Second half, he was really shook up a little bit, but they'll get stronger there when Godeke comes back.
Yeah.
Defense is not that good. I don't care that they ripped up Philadelphia. That wasn't Philadelphia that we know. He's going to have a lot of games like this. I'm glad that we hung on to Mayfield. We didn't bail on him too soon because of the Denver game.
And like the easiest throw he made all night, wide open guy all day, wide open guy in the end zone. I don't remember who it was.
Johnson, he dropped it. Yeah.
Yeah, just Cameron Johnson. He just dropped the. That was like the easiest touchdown of the year, and he dropped it. I don't really have much to say about the Eagles. They're looking forward to them getting healthy after the bye.
They were sluggish early on. Hurts was sacked 6 times. They really started to get going when they were dinking and dunking down the field. There were little moments in the second half where it looked like they were going to try and get back into the game, and they'd make a mistake. Hurts would get sacked, or there'd be a turnover, and that ended that.
All right, next up, Colts 27, Steelers 24. And we talked about Flacco. Oh, by the way, if you're just tuning in now and want to hear about Rachaad White and Bucky Irving, we did that at the top of the show. So for this game, we talked about the passing game with Flacco versus Richardson. All right, so let's talk about then Justin Fields. 34 fantasy points, 55 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing, 300. I mean, this was a huge game for Justin Fields. Wasn't a great game. Made some mistakes, but great fantasy game for him. And Heath, is he a must-add player? As he's 71% rostered. Is he a must-start player?
I mean, next week with no Jalen Hurts and no Jared Goff and no Patrick Mahomes, I think he's probably going to be a top 12 quarterback.
We have Mahomes next week. We don't have just.
But I said what
yeah, I get.
I think you're definitely starting Fields over Mahomes next week. Now, this was the type of game script where they fall behind by a couple of scores, and for some reason, Najee Harris can't run against the Colts, and so they had to throw the ball a bunch, and it worked out great. I don't think you should expect that type of production in the passing game very often, although they are playing. I mean, I don't know what to expect when they play the Cowboys next week, but the Cowboys are the type of team that if you told me they were going to build a 2-score lead against the Steelers, I would believe you. Steelers will probably be favored in that game. It's at home.
Cowboys most likely down Micah Parsons and definitely down DeMarcus Lawrence. So that's a huge boost for Justin Fields. This was the game script of, will he keep the job?
Yeah.
Because they got down, and could he bring them back into the game? And he definitely did. And so Pickens had a bad fumble in the red zone. That's probably 3 points if they don't lose that. Granted, the sluggishness of the offense early, again, I don't know how much you want to put that on Fields, but he's the quarterback, so he's got to deserve some of the credit. But the fact that he brought them back in the game and didn't make the huge mistakes, I think keeps Russell Wilson on the bench. Like, we were talking about this before the game. Like, the thought was clearly, they were a better team than the Colts. Should they go out and win this game? They get to 4-0, get to 5-0, get to 6-0. You start to look like, okay, Baltimore struggling. Forget about what happens next. We don't know. Cincinnati clearly off to an 0-3 start. Like, they were looking like having a chance without playing a division game to be the best team in the division. And if they have a lead in the AFC North, like, are they talking extension with Justin Fields? Are you talking trading Russell Wilson to a team that's looking for a quarterback? Like that, those are the conversations we were having on our show. And so I wonder, like, what happens after a loss? Because, again, I don't think this is Justin Fields losing this game. But the coaching staff may decide, is this now the time to turn to Russell Wilson if he's healthy? And I hope not, because I think Russell Wilson, while will be better, most likely, I mean, clearly George Pickens had a great game there. Russell Wilson will be better for these guys as a passer. Like, you see Justin Fields can support Pickens. He can get Freiermuth in the end zone and can clearly still get his own numbers when needed. And I think that's the next sort of version or maybe iteration of this offense.
To be fair, there was another issue between him and center late in the game where the ball was snapped too soon. There was like a minute 40 left in the game, and Fields couldn't get the snap, went behind him. He recovered it. It was a sack. And I wonder if that's going to gnaw away a little bit at Tomlin. But A, Wilson might be hurt. He's got this calf injury. You can't trade him if he's hurt. And B, you can't start him if he's hurt. So I think Fields is going to have this job.
Yeah, but all year. This is his first good game for fantasy.
And how about this, Adam? He had an opposite game of Baker Mayfield. He had no touchdowns in the first 42 minutes of the game.
Right. He went nuts.
This was a Bortles.
Third and fourth quarter.
This was 100% of Bortles.
I don't know if it was all Bortles, but he definitely bortled it away at the end, if that's what you mean.
No, I mean, like, he was not good early. He lost another fumble to the Colts. Yes, fell way behind because of poor offense and poor play, and then scored a whole bunch of points chasing the score.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll take a break and come back and talk about the late games, Washington and Arizona. We'll start with that one when we come back.
A Quiet Place Day 1 is now streaming on Paramount Plus. It's thrilling, terrifying. It will make your heart pound out of your chest. A Quiet Place Day 1, now streaming.
Washington with the win, 42-14. How many quarterbacks are you taking over Jaden Daniels at this point?
Not many, man.
Allen, Lamar, Hurts.
I
Yes.
guess.
Yeah.
Probably Burrow.
Yeah, I think he's a top 5 QB.
Okay, he's been great. 26 or more points in 3 of 4 games. Brian Robinson Jr.'s been awesome. Keep starting him. Do you see any sell highs on the Commanders, or just let's party?
I'd sell Terry.
Why?
They're still running the ball at a really high rate. He's going to be like in that boom bust wide receiver 3 territory, and he's had 2 good games in a row. So maybe somebody thinks he's a top 20 wide receiver now.
You mean boom bust wide receiver 3 territory? Whatever, wide receiver 2, whatever you said. I was thinking
if we're gonna love Daniels, and he's throwing the ball as well as he has over the last 2 games. He was 26 for 30 today. I think Terry McLaurin is, if you can sell real high, go for it. But I think he's a number 2 receiver moving forward. That's what I drafted him to be.
Brandon Aiyuk or Terry McLaurin?
Oh, I might be at the point where I'm ready to say McLaurin.
Okay. All right. But would you turn McLaurin into Garrett Wilson?
Yep.
Depends on what the rest of my receivers look like, because I think we're going to see a tough stretch for Garrett Wilson coming up. We already talked about that on the show.
Interesting.
If I needed a guy now, it's McLaurin.
All right. Kyler Murray with a horrible game against the easiest matchup.
That's 3 of 4 for him, Adam.
Yeah, 3 of 4 with less than 17 fantasy points, but he's been I feel like he's been a little streaky in his career. I think I'm going to say buy low on Kyler Murray.
I tend to agree, but I don't like 22 pass attempts and only 1 rush. And they weren't dominated like in time of possession that badly. I kind of want to look into that a little bit more to see what happened there. But he's at San Francisco next week, Green Bay after that. These are not easy matchups for him moving forward.
San Francisco 30, New England 13. Ramondre, not so good, especially with the fumble, but I don't think we expect him to be so good today. Not much to say for New England. Ramondre is the only guy you're going to think about starting. On the other side of the ball, Debo, 29% started, 3 catches, 58 yards, 2 carries for 14 yards. I don't know. Heath, is there anything to say here about the 49ers?
I mean, I don't think it's nothing that Juwan Jennings led the team in targets the week after he had one of the greatest fantasy performances of the decade. And Brandon Aiyuk still hasn't had a good game this year.
It's not good for anyone if he's a factor. I mean, it's not good for Kittle.
It would be zero. It would be terrible. Really bad.
Yeah, except for Purdy. Purdy's playing great. The fantasy points haven't really been there, but he is making some serious plays, using his legs well. Last week was his only good fantasy game. I mean, he's like Kyler. They've had very similar years so far. Who do you like better, Purdy or Kyler?
Kyler.
Purdy or Dak?
Dak.
Okay. All right, I'll leave it at that. Jordan Mason.
Awesome.
He's just so good. Do you think Jordan Mason, let's be quick on this, is going to hurt McCaffrey's value when McCaffrey comes back?
Early on, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. Let's see what the 49ers record is at that point and how much they can afford. I would assume they're going to try to ease McCaffrey in. But
they'd be fools not to.
But I mean, if they're living around 500, they might have to have a different conversation.
Maybe. And certainly if they're in a competitive game that it's a gotta win game, something like that, then McCaffrey is going to play more than Mason. But just on the whole, I would imagine that we'll see Mason play more and make it a little bit more of a split than we're accustomed to seeing. And if the 49ers start reeling off some wins, then we could make the Kelsey argument for McCaffrey, where 49ers are just going to do whatever they can to just get McCaffrey to the playoffs. And then in the playoffs, they let him off the hook. Not the hook, off the chain.
Las Vegas 20, Cleveland 16. Sorry, Dave. We talked already about the Browns. Dave, is there anything you'd like to say about the Raiders?
Do I have to?
Yeah, I mean, Tucker scored on a rush. Myers was good, Zamir White was bad.
Score on rushing touchdowns, or rushing, I should say. There's nothing to really love about this offense right now.
You know what? Talk
Like-
about Bowers.
Make a quarterback change.
Talk about Bowers because he's had 2 duds in a row.
He had a big opportunity early on in the game, I believe, and he couldn't come up with the ball. I think it was either overthrown or he bobbled it. I don't know for sure. But 3 targets stinks, and I expect more, especially in a game without Devontae Adams. That was very disappointing.
Okay, so Kelsey or Bowers rest of season?
Kelsey.
Yeah, I think it's Kelsey. It might have been Kelsey even before this week, too.
Speaking of which, Kansas City 17 and the Chargers 10. So we've covered Mahomes. We covered the running backs. I don't think we have to talk about the wide receivers necessarily. We can save that for the waiver wire show. Except, do you think Xavier Worthy is going to, he only had 4 targets, but do you think Xavier Worthy is going to work his way into must start or probably start territory?
Probably start territory, not must start.
I think he's in the boom bust flex territory for sure.
Okay. And then on the other side of the ball, how are we feeling about J.K. Dobbins? 2 straight games with single-digit PPR fantasy points.
It's not great. We know that the Chargers went into this game without both starting tackles, and this was a really tough game. I like that he had 3 catches for 30 yards, but he's not doing what he did in the first 2 weeks of the season, which is breaking off long runs against terrible defenses. So maybe a little bit more matchup dependent running back. If you sold high, congratulations. At least he's staying healthy. At least he's playing. At least he's getting a lot of work. He's leading them in snaps and touches and all that. So I'm happy for that. They're on a bye this week. They're at Denver after this week, at Arizona in week 7. I think in one of those 2 games at least he'll be good, maybe both.
I mean, you make a good point. The difference right now is his first 2 games were against the Raiders and the Panthers. His second 2 games were against the Steelers and the Chiefs. And the Chiefs' run defense has been phenomenal. So hopefully, not that he has necessarily easy matchups, but he is dominating. Dobbins is dominating touches right now. I mean, Gus Edwards is a true backup running back. I dropped
72% of the snaps. Oh, sorry, Adam. Let me just get this in. 72% of the snaps, almost all the third down snaps, half of their snaps inside the 10. He's their guy.
Heath, I dropped Ladd McConkey. Did I make a mistake? He had 67 yards and a touch. I did?
There's no question. He just scored 17 fantasy points. You never want to drop the guy that scores 17 fantasy points the day that you dropped him. He was number 1 in targets today. I think there will be games where Quentin Johnston is, but he did not have a good day at all. Had a terrible time separating. McConkey made a great catch in the back of the end zone for his touchdown. I think they're both probably in that worthy boom bust flex range, but you know what's going to happen on Tuesday morning? We're going to release rankings, and a lot of those boom bust flex wide receivers are going to be in our top 36 because 4 teams are on a bye and 17 guys got hurt.
Yeah, well, McConkey will not be there because he will be one of those guys on a bye. And I dropped him for someone who scored like 15 points, so it wasn't that bad. But if I lose by Trey Tucker.
Okay.
Oh,
you'd rather have McConkey rest.
That's awful.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, I think McConkey. I'd spot you 3 points a game.
Yeah, but I need someone for next week also. So
I think he might still.
No, come on now. Come on.
Congratulations to everybody who has Derrick Henry on their fantasy team.
I know. It's crazy. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow with Beyond the Box Score on Fantasy Football Today.